Hello, everybody. Today is the February the 21st in the year of our Lord 2023. And today's topic is how to kill people. Now, I'm not a woman. I'm not a trans. I'm just an old fart, okay? And you don't want to fuck with me even though I'm 5'5". I'm a 300-pound roly-poly. All I know is how to kill, okay? I was trained by the best of the best, the military. Now, this ain't no karate or jiu-jitsu or any of that shit. No, Navy SEALs are not trained like that. I'm not a Navy SEAL, first of all, but I know I've got friends that are, friends that were in special forces. As a matter of fact, I was the guy that wrote the orders on a freaking pencil. Of course, they had to transcribe that. It was an assembly line. We were just out with a pencil pusher, 42 Alpha Administration. I lucked out. They tried to put me in infantry. I marched until blisters popped and then popped again, and calluses up and down my spine from laying on rocks in areas that were unsanitary. I drank water. I never went to Camp Lejeune, but I got my belly full of infantry, and I knew that was not for me. So my life story, I'm going to abbreviate it. 3 parts. First of all, I don't count my childhood. Fuck that. It's past. All I count is military, and the second part of my career was insurance, and that's where I'll die, is selling insurance. And I'm old man Tidwell because my father just passed away. He was in his late 90s, middle 90s, what have you. He would have a little bit over 100 if it hadn't been for this damn COVID that the Chinese released in their, not necessarily their balloons, but their people that they kept shipping over here along with their fentanyl, okay? We're at war and don't even realize it. We're at war with Russia, China, and the Arab nations. And those 3 are the ones we got to look out for. The Arab nations will attack from the, I think they're planning on attacking from the, let me think for a minute. I know Russia will come down from the north with their tanks and shit. And the Chinese will meet them halfway, coming across the other way. They'll attack from the far east. And then they need the Arab nations coming in. I'm sorry, the Chinese will come in from the west, the Russians will come in from the north, and the Arabs will come in from the east. And the rest of them, the cartel and all the other people that hate us, will come in across our border in the south. They're already doing that now. Our demographics are changing, people. We're no longer in the majority. If you're white, you better start prepping. It's like kill all the whiteys. That's what they're trying to conjure up with Antifa and the people that control minds of masses. And they're the people at the very top of the pyramid that are never going to pay taxes. Forget that bullshit that they tell us about, we're only going to tax, we're going to attack the people at the top. That will never happen. Do you know why? Because people at the top of the pyramid are in, there's another one right beside it, it's called the United States government. Here's big business. They're in bed together. Don't trust Facebook. I barely even trust Google. Every single thing that you look at, this media-wise, is geared toward 1 or 2 things, either making money or doing the bidding of what they've been told to do by the government. Government is very powerful, and it doesn't matter who is in power, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, whether it's Yago Shushi, all right? Government is just too damn big right now. They're bigger than we are. We're supposed to be the ones supporting their pyramid with maybe a king or a president at the top and his orderly cabinets beneath. And now it's become more and more evident that one man holds all the power, just like the kings used to do back in the old days, okay? And if the king does something wrong, it's okay. He's a king. He's got every right to do wrong. He's above the law. Just like Nancy Pelosi and her gang of 7 or people at the top, when they have this much power, they feel invulnerable. They're not like us. They're gods. It's our duty to worship them. And that's their focus and attitude. When you hold all the money, you've got all the keys, then all you have to do is tighten your fist and don't let people eat, and then they'll come crawling to you, okay? They'll come lifting your pyramid. All us little people at the bottom are lifting that pyramid. And for what? It's for the oligarchs at the top, the handful of people that have all the money, all the power, and all the influence, because they control the media, they control every time you turn on the radio and listen, they control every single app. I mean, there's a few renegades out there. There's Tor. You know, it's even better than DuckDuck. It will turn your browser a little bit, it makes it difficult to follow. The FBI can't follow that as easily. And then there's DuckDuck, it will not record every single site you've been on. I'm going to tell you, it's gotten so ridiculous now. Kid down the street was hauled off and changed. And I know all he did, probably browsing the internet, he had a couple of tabs that put him, into areas on the internet that he wasn't supposed to view. And those are traps. They're setting traps. That's the cops. That's their job, is to set traps, steam traps. And then they trap people and they make their quota that way. All right? And they got plenty to work with right now with all these people coming across the border, especially the ones that are doing they're bringing kids with them and they're doing trafficking, okay? Those people, to me, are the equivalent of roaches. We need to get them out of our society, but they're probably already here and there's nothing we can do about it, because that in itself is addictive. Sex is very addictive. So are drugs. And when you infiltrate a culture the way we've been infiltrated, how do you expect us not to be obese and fat and waddling around? We've got an epidemic over here. We don't even realize it. There's so many fat people walking around. I'm one of them too. It's because you go to any restaurant, what do? They cover it with all these contaminated byproducts of stuff that comes out of factories that God knows what is in it. All right? If you want to really be healthy, look at the people in Italy. Look at the people in Africa. None of them. Worldwide, we're the fattest culture there is, because we've contaminated ourselves. We've allowed ourselves to be led down the path of death and unrighteousness. And I'm one of the worst. I curse like a sailor when I get mad. Am I repenting to Jesus every time I turn around? Fuck no. He's either going to accept me for what I am, or he's going to say, you're on your way to hell. And I'll accept that fate either way. I'm either going to go to heaven or go to hell. And you know what? I don't really care anymore. All I want to do is try to live a good life, live and let live, and let me stay in my corner. But if you break in my house, woe unto thee. Because I do tow the gun at all times. I carry it. Everybody's got a piece in my house. This is the house of peace. Even my wife, she knows how to pull the trigger on a shotgun. Don't break in. This whole neighborhood is a little bit on the redneck side. I wouldn't advise anybody to come in our neighborhood. We don't take kindly to stealing. We don't take kindly to people throwing rocks and breaking our windows in our neighborhood. And we don't take kindly to kids that do drive-bys with baseball bats knocking mailboxes off. You know why we don't take kindly to that? Because we know we're wise, and we've been out there when we were kids doing that kind of shit ourselves. Okay? How many people were in a gang at one time? Wait a minute. All right, let me put it to you another way. How many people out there have ever told a lie? Okay, yeah, everybody raised their hand, right? I've told a whopper, you, she, he, it. And I'm not trying to be cute with critical race theory and pronouns. It's all horseshit to me. All right, what I'm talking about is people are human beings and we have deficits. That's the reason there's such a thing as religion. It's supposed to keep the human nature tamed so they're ready for Jesus to return, right? That's the Christian way. You get the good book, and I can lay it right here and quote your scriptures. I know this stuff because not only have I been in and out of insane asylums, I've been in and out of holy roller churches. As a matter of fact, I've got relatives that founded a church. Church of God are my people. We are the ones that founded that church. It wasn't me. I was an infant. And I'm going to tell you what, bigotry still lives within the church. One of the biggest deacons in the Church of God, based here in Atlanta on Hemp Hill. I was in his truck as a little kid, and I remember distinctly. I must have been around, I guess I was around, to me, I'm a kid. If anything under 21 to me is a kid. I guess I was a teenager. And I remember, I'm not going to tell you his real name, I'm just going to call him Old Joe. Old Joe was driving, he had a shotgun right in the back of his truck, always carried a shotgun loaded, right down here in Atlanta. When Atlanta was little, real small town about the size of Birmingham, and he was putting down the highway on that thing, and I was with him, and he was there to pick up some potatoes or something at the farmer's market to take back to the house and, cook a big batch of. They always kept a lot of people in their house. They had one of these big houses, like you think they were millionaires. They weren't millionaires. They were gypsies. Every single family that occupied a different part of that house. How many bedrooms is that damn thing in? It looked like somebody tremendously rich lived there. Big, big house. And it set up over the expressway that wasn't even there yet. It sat on the side of a mountain. It was a beautiful sight. Beautiful until the bulldozers came through and started plowing up the road and making a highway. That was about the time they started building highways in Atlanta. Atlanta was still a sleepy little town, real small, quaint, and there were a lot of blacks, a lot of whites. We all got along. It takes two set of colors to play my piano, black and white, okay? Everything was hunky-dory. Occasionally you'd hear of a robbery, usually a black on a black or a black on, but not that many black people messing with the whites, not that many whites messing with the blacks. There's always going to be exceptions. There's a few KKK idiots out there, and there's always going to be a few Antifa, Black Lives Matter, racist, reverse racism, where they hate whites because of our history of abusing blacks and other people that we could make our slaves. There is a lot about history that if we don't remember it, we're doomed to repeat it. And so why in the hell does Antifa come in there and tear down our statues? We need to understand those guys were bigots. Jefferson Davis, I think, owned slaves. That's not right, but back in that day it was cool, have your slave and eat her too, if that's what you wanted to do. You can do anything you want to with a slave. Focus. What did I first tell you when I sat down? I told you I was going to bloviate. I don't even have a mission statement yet. I got to come up with a mission statement, and then I can come up with a way to create a strategy to get the big payoff. Let's call it the PPP plan. Not my idea. It's not my idea, but it's something that I remember recently from being in a class. PPP. Do you have a PPP problem? If you're my age, you do. I only go by 3 rules. 3 rules of my life are to never fall down. You fall down, oh, I'm falling, I can't get up. Wear those chains around you with a little button that you push, you get help. Help is on the way. Help me. Take the hospital. All right, I take care of, that's my rule number 1. Don't fall down, especially those stairs. I had a winding staircase that goes up 3 stories. Not quite that house, exaggeration, but this is a big house that I live in on the side of a mountain, and it overlooks the valley. I can see the golf course across the street. That's the Sugar Hill Country Club, I guess you call it. And then right beyond that is where I do my volunteer work. That's post 127. That's for ex-military vets that want to do volunteer work, and I'm their service officer. So that keeps me busy on my hobby off, on my days, on my hobby days, which are few and far between. Most of the time I'm working. And what do? I do the same thing I did when I started working in the civilian world. The only thing I know is insurance. I started out door to door with life insurance, worked my way up the hierarchy until finally I owned an agency where we could sell everything with everybody. That's life, health, property, and casualty. We competed with State Farm, but we weren't like State Farm. We were independents. Okay? My wife and I ran it together, and she's got twice the brains that I've got. So she's the brains behind Paul. She kept the books. She was in, not I'm going to say in bed with the CPAs, but she knew about as much as they did when it came time for taxes. I was all constantly having to bring every single receipt home and explain to her, now why did you charge that $7.93? Well, honey, I just stopped off at the Legion. Well, what did you do there? I just had a beer. Well, did you talk to anybody about business? Well, yeah, James knows that I'm in the insurance business. Well, did you try to sell him something? No, but he's got my card. Well, we're going to go ahead and count that beer as a social, blah, blah, blah. Did you buy him a beer? Yada, yada, yada. Before you know it, we're building this empire of receipts to justify whatever we make is going to be ours. And we have to pay as little back through taxation as possible. Now, that works good for a while. But for 1099ers like me, I've always been self-employed, basically. It doesn't work. The only time I felt safe was when I was in the Army now. I'm not behind the plow. I never got rich by digging the ditch. I'm in the Army now. They took care of everything. They paid for my food, my clothing. You know, I was making all of maybe $25,000 after they paid for everything. Then I had a per diem and all that stuff. So yeah, I could live, but I couldn't really live in the civilian world. I wasn't making enough. But I did make enough to live on base. They had a base over here at Fort Mac, where I basically started my military career. I trained to become a 90-day wonder, and I did. I was a captain, not right out of the chute, but lieutenants move up pretty quick in their rank. And I had my own platoon. They just referred to me as captain. And I bossed around people that were twice, 3 times my size. That's okay. We're all the same. We're on a mission. They understood that, and they obeyed orders. And then when the higher rank, was just about anybody with any real rank at all, came on campus, we all stood at attention, including little old Captain me. I was more or less supposed to be a field trainer, you know, directing the way it's supposed to work. Is the captain is in the field with his troops, and underneath him are his lieutenants, sergeants, staff sergeant, etc., etc., etc. The lower you go, tends to be heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier loads that are being toted. Finally, the foot soldier, which is the PFC, they're having to really get out there and do the real work, the dirty work, I call it. Crawling through the trenches, putting themselves at risk, hiding behind bunkers, and jumping in foxholes if necessary when bombs start to go off. Okay, I love this Army that we've got. They're good people. They're all volunteers. They are there because they want to be. And I'm proud to be a member of the United States military. I'm not currently with the military. I'm retired, but I got an honorable discharge, and I'm proud of my career in the military. But when it came time to step out of that environment, it was a whole new world. All of a sudden, it wasn't rank that mattered. It was your color. It was the way you wore your clothes. It was the style, the way you walked. You had to do everything just right, or you weren't going to make it up that hierarchy to where the real money is, and that's the rich people. Rich people don't act the way poor dirt farmers like me and you and some of the other plain Jane folks are. They're elegant. They're the people, when you go into a room, they might own that room. If you walk in and do a bar, they might own that bar. You don't know. But they've got enough money. If they don't own it, they could if they wanted to. They're crazy rich. Because their daddies before them were crazy rich. And the daddies before them, you see, it's a dynasty. Look at the Bushes. Bush 1, Bush 2, Bush 3. People build dynasties. And what is to us, we see them as royalty. And hero worship is the big deal, always has been. I think it's embedded in our genetic makeup. People naturally gravitate toward worshiping mammon, which is money, like gold. Mammon and people in the position of influence. The kings, the queens, the royalty, or in our case, people with lots and lots of money. So the love of money, because it will bring you temporary happiness. You can't buy happiness, obviously. As a matter of fact, some of the most wicked and nasty, acting, paranoid people in the world are the ones that are rich. They're not enjoying their wealth. They're trying to hoard it and guard it from all these people like me and others that are coming to them to steal their ideas, to figure out, how did he get so rich? Let me get a little piece of him and maybe I'll figure out the combination of what's going to make me rich. And that doesn't work at the street level. What are you going to do, be a gangster? Yeah, you might have a house full of money. They're going to eventually bust you. If you got that much money and nowhere to go except spend it on bling and gold and shit like that, you're going to have 2 or 4s. Yeah, you can buy yourself a 50 caliber machine gun, but eventually the army will come in, or the FBI, or they'll bring tanks or whatever they've got to do to overthrow or tear through your. People have tried this before, building bunkers and having, their little domain and trying to protect that. Yeah, that works, except there's one thing that we got that they don't. We already knew when they were driving the first nail into their fortress. We were watching them from satellites, from ground level, and from hidden cameras. And we've got technology that I can't even discuss. Trust me, we are living in a fishbowl. Today, more than ever, they know more about you than you know yourself. That's kind of scary. So our freedoms, if you feel like you got freedoms, think again. The only difference in us and Russia and Pakistan and people that are run by dictators is that we are a free nation. It's in the Constitution that we have the right to bear arms, and we have the right to speak our minds openly and freely, and all men are created equal in the sight of God, and we are a God-based nation. You don't have to believe in God if you don't want to. You can be like me. I'm more of an agnostic than I am anything else, but I do believe in basic principles of good and evil. And evil is there. Don't kid yourself. It's in all of us. And good is there. Don't kid yourself. There's a few good people out there that really are good, or at least try to be good. I'm one of them, but I'm also one mean son of a bitch. Don't piss me off. When I say mean son of a bitch, I mean I am the son of a bitch. And I could be a fucking mean motherfucker. How do I know? Because I am a motherfucker. All right? I'm also a daddy fucker. I could have killed my parents for the way they brought me up. You don't even want to know what I went through. Okay? So let's not go there. That's the reason I joined the Army. I ran away from home to join something to get away from that insanity. Before I left, they made me go through seminary, psychiatric shock treatments, they tried to pump me up with so many drugs because they didn't want anybody to know what had gone on in the house of sin. That's the house of incest. Thank God I never repeated that with my one and only child. Okay? I say all my kids. I used to tell Michael, I said, son, aren't you glad that you're my number one kid? Out of all these kids that I've got in the house. And he'd always look at me and say, okay, Dad, you told me that joke, worn it out so many times. I said, son. He said, what? Son, repeat after me. Boys. And he looked at me and said, not this. Okay, boys. I love my daddy. I love my daddy. I was brought up in a manly, God-fearing, the man rules. And when you marry a woman, you marry her with the vows of three things. She is to love, honor, and obey. The man is the king of his castle. When somebody comes in my house, yeah, I'll listen to her. As a matter of fact, she's twice the IQ I've got. My IQ's been evaluated around 88, gold normal, and hers is above 200. She's the freaking genius that has read every book that you can imagine, and she's got a photographic memory to back it up. She's a readaholic, and she's a great orator and writer. She doesn't like getting up and making a jackass of herself like I do. But honey, let me tell you something. If she puts a script in front of me, I'll rule the world, because I can speak from the heart. She's a little bit shy. She's clairvoyant. And if she shakes your hand, she'll know more about your past than you can ever remember. All she has to do is touch you. If she comes in this room and touches this table, she can pretty much tell you where everything in this room is, down to the last detail of what page is on where. And the reason she's so cluttered and that she doesn't have to be organized. She's got that brilliance of clairvoyance. She knows by looking at each box what's in there. I mean, she put her head on a book, she'd have it memorized when she pulled up. Now that's an Edgar Casey story, but she's the same way. She's living proof. There must be a God, because if not, she probably is an angel or a hybrid from somewhere. But anyway, she's a different breed. I love her to death. Why in the hell did she ever pick me for a husband? I'll never know. Never know. Maybe I was a challenge that she was going to try to conquer. And I pretty much relent to her on most everything. She's my oracle, my gem in the rough. She's the one thing I really do worship. If I was going to pick a God, I'd pick her. And believe me, I've studied religions all the way back to the Hindus, the oldest recorded religion that we know of. But there could be shit even before then. The earth is 4 billion years old. That's enough time for maybe half a dozen civilizations to have come and gone, wiped each other off the face of the earth with their nukes or whatever they had at the time when they destroyed themselves. And then 1 billion years later, the whole thing would have started over from germ to whatever. Evolution is an amazing thing, but we're also subject to being invaded from outer space by asteroids and things that come down and have different life forms embedded in the rock. We don't know. There's been reports of UFOs, which I think a lot of that is just complete and total scare tactic. I believe that we've got UFOs right now at Area 51. That's just my personal opinion. No two opinions are the same. I'm sticking to my own. I think that we've already got the UFOs, and we've reversed technology to the point where now we've got computers that can be embedded in the tip of your finger, almost like a grain of salt. We've got insects that are drones. They don't last very long, but they last long enough to get into your house, and that fly that's flying around, he's taking pictures and relaying it back. And before you know it, God knows everything. Maybe that's God's way of looking at people. And when I say God, I'm talking about Makuto, whoever that actual person is that's in control at that point in time. Maybe he's got a little nest of dynasty eggs that he's laid. Maybe he's a trans. Maybe God's a woman. We don't know. Maybe he's an insect form. Who knows? Now he says that he created man after his own image, or at least that's what the good book says. But keep in mind, the good book was written by people. And this is something that I've always held to. All religions, no matter what they are, from devil worship to the best of the Jesus worshipers, Christianity, which is supposed to be the religion of love. All religions focus on one thing, and that's hero worship. Let's find a hero we can worship. So Christ was written by about 20, 30, 40 years after he died. The scribes started writing these scriptures. Many of the scriptures that did not fit the agenda of the Catholic Church, which was in control after the Roman Empire fell during the Dark Ages. They shunned those scripts that they didn't like. We don't like this because it makes Christ look too weak, or more human-like. So we're going to keep out that scripture. We're going to keep out this scripture. Even the Dead Scrolls to this day, I don't think they include any of that in the good book of I Say So, which is the Bible. So who's saying so? The scribes, the church, the Catholic Church is so huge. And do they obey their own laws? I don't know. Popes have their own little nest of perversion. They molest children, which we all hate. God forbid them if they ever molested one of my kids. But I understand that it's a sickness. And what do you do with a man that's out there preying on our children? That's a good question. I'm not a psychiatrist. I wanted to be one at one time. I came this close because I passed the exam, the entrance exam at Emory. I made one of the highest scores on the Miller's analogy they've ever seen, off the chart. I'm a good philosopher, but I'm not the kind of person you want to come to for real noodling in the brain health, because I'll probably get you thinking like I do, and that's not where you want to be, trust me. My doctorate came from a school I created out of my own mind. It's called, I did the calligraphy. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm an artist. It runs in my blood. My mother before was an artist. On my dad's side, they were all preachers, ministers, and a snake oil salesman. So that's my dad's side. My mother's side, highly talented, highly creative. But when you combine those two elements together, father schizophrenic, complete, driven. He was the most successful salesman I've ever met. He was always number one or two in every company he ever sold for. He'd always make his quota and then some. But there's a lot of bad stuff that comes with that, and that's shyster, techniques. I'm not even gonna believe me. He could sell snow to an Eskimo. He was almost like a con man, a con artist, dangerously talented. On the other side, my mother was very meek and mild-mannered, but she had a temper. She could write beautiful poetry in the form of a picture, and it was a diagram. She was the architectural engineer. Her plans were given out to, I think it was cousins or builders in Atlanta. A lot of these homes that you see in the expensive neighborhoods are designed by my mother. She was extremely talented. All right, so you got an artist here, you got a snake oil salesman here, and you bring them together. You got me. And what does that result? When the two parties that got together are letting one big bed be their family bed, where everybody participates in everything that's sexual, whatever, that creates some really weird people growing up. I was extremely perverted. I mean, I like to go out and raise hell, but I wouldn't put the boundaries within the party. If I want to do a street, I just run out in the street. But hey, come on with me, because when the cops come, we got to spread out. Everybody goes their own way. And I got away with a lot of shit, growing up. But I never got a girl pregnant, because I always wore rubber, which probably kept me from getting, STDs. Eventually, I did get burned once, but I cleared that up with antibiotics right away. Went down to the clinic. Now, when I was in service, we didn't have that opportunity except on when we were on tour. And where they really go wild is getting over in these areas where the prostitution is legal, and that's where a lot of our young boys get burned. I never was one of them because I didn't like spending that much money. But I do like gambling. That's a vice that I've got. I love rolling those bones at Vegas. And how I'm a risk taker when it comes to the stock market, which is a no. Stay away from the stock market. We had a nice little nest egg built up after we sold our agency. I left the Army, married Janet, and we had a 30-year successful run and making money. And I made a shitload of money. But not all at once. It takes about 30 years to build a successful agency. The first 10 years, you're in your infancy. Your average income the first year, if you're lucky, you make $5,000. But that doubles every year. You see, because you're laying renewal business on top of it. So just simple math, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Now we're at 50 after 10 years. Hell, I could have gone and gotten a job making 50 right off the bat. So insurance is not necessarily the best way, but it is the most stable way. Once you get that book built up, you get $100,000. The next year it might be 200, 400. You understand the math? It's like an elliptical curve. So yeah, I was making so much money. I was like Breaking Bad. You know, we used to have these big pile of cash, and you don't know how much of that belongs to you and how much you got to pay the government. And greed starts to set in. Like, what are we going to do with all this money? Well, I didn't do anything. I tried to save it because, you know, that's the way I was brought up. You don't just go out and spend it all. But then again, I started getting crazy with it. My mood started swinging, going from one extreme to another, because on good seasons, I'd make a lot of money, but then on bad seasons, I'd be dirt poor again. So everybody has mood swings. I hate calling people bipolar, but I have to admit there is something to it. I'm probably guilty of myself. I know with my dad being a schizoid, my mom being extremely, what do you call it, manic depressive. Most of the time when she was in a depressive state. When you combine two crazy people, you're going to get the birth of that baby is going to be even crazier. I was born in an insane asylum. And I'm convinced my mother, her memory was so bad that she must have had multiple shock treatments. And that destroys your ability to remember. To this day, I can introduce myself at a party, and I turn my back, walk around, and 5 minutes later, I come back, I cannot remember that bitch's name. So I have to write things down. As a matter of fact, I take a device in my pocket for memory. It records everything I say and every sound that anybody in the room makes. So when I forget things, I have to go in the restroom and rewind that thing. It's a little, anybody can do it. It's a little an app that I loaded on my smartphone. I've got a real thin smartphone, just slips right in my pocket. So yes, I use aids, and I use Google too. Although Google is so contaminated now with big business interests, unless you pay Google, you're not going to be the one that people are looking for if they put your name in there, unless you're a big donator or you buy their ad program, which puts you right at the top. When people pull an ad about David said, well, you're probably going to eventually find something to do with insurance, because that's my forte, insurance. I'm the man they turn to for advice. Now that I'm retired, even though I'm still working a job, it's a W-2 job, by the way. I don't have to worry about the IRS anymore. They had us under investigation for 4 long years. I had to go down to the office every year, tug box after box after box, and pictures to prove it. We were like their biggest customer for a while until the money ran out. And guess what? When we didn't have any more money, all we had was this house and a lot of bills left over and no job. Well, hey, IRS, where'd you go, man? They don't care about us now because we're not making anything like I used to. Oh, I still make a paycheck. I'm making minimum wage right now under W-2, or a little above minimum wage is all. But it's insurance related. And what kind of job would hire some idiot like me? A phone solicitor, man. I'm great on the phone. I don't solicit though, I answer incoming calls. So to do that and to do it effectively, you got to put your fingers in a lot of different areas, because it's not enough business just in Atlanta alone to keep even one people's, if you want to call them that, busy. I used to have a staff of girls, up to 5 at a time on the phone constantly, but they were answering incoming calls from business that I generated outside the agency. When I went and door knocked, I'd invite the owner, the CEO, whoever. Hey, let's go play some golf, all expenses paid, drinks are on the house. That's the kind of thing that I was into, was shaking hands, rubbing elbows, and trying to get to know the movers and the shakers of my community, so that they can not only refer all their friends and family, which were also very rich, they could also give me a piece of their pie as far as the employees that work for them. When I went in to some of these corporations, they might have 2,000 people, and my job was to sign them up for the group plan 125, section 120, whatever the pension. I used to be pretty good at this stuff when I was doing it, but that was always on the outside. I'm more of a commercial guy, the property inspector for big homes, some of the nicest homes. I did things that other agents only dreamed about, and I was just as successful as some of the most successful people in Atlanta when it came to insurance. I made a name for myself. I was on the honor roll every place I've ever worked. They liked me, okay? They knew what I was. But that's all temporary. And you can't worship money. You can't do it. If you worship money, you are destined to a life of hell. And I mean hell on this earth. And as far as I'm concerned, when you die, the energy within your soul does not die. It's like a dying ember. It will go with you into eternity. It never dies. So if you're bad, you're going to have to suffer memories of all the bad things that you've ever done to other people. And you'll have to live with those memories for the rest of eternity. That's my personal opinion. And that's what I define as heaven or hell. If you've done good things to people and you've helped people along their path to try to get from point A to point B, especially downtrodden people. Oh, I've got scars right here. At age 6, I tried to commit suicide, okay? Got the scar right here to prove it. I'm going to tell you, I'm speaking from the heart. Don't be like me. Be normal. Be like the woman upstairs that walks down. You want to see her picture? I'm married to her. You want to see her picture? I'll show you her picture. Hang on, sis. I married a young girl, a lot younger than I am, but she was legal. All right. This is a picture of my wife. It's not a current picture. It was more like the picture when I married her. I'm going to show you her picture. And I'm going to tell you something. If you ever meet this woman, you'll fall in love immediately. I know I did. It was love at first sight. That's Janet. Janet is a clairvoyant. She met a guy that was so crazy. I guess I was a challenge to her because I'm thoroughbred crazy. This was my Bible when I met her. That was my Bible. But as I grew and matured and she taught me life's lessons, I started reading different books. I started getting more interested in politics and books about psychology and change. I stayed, well, you know, a lot of that shit is me. I mean, I am crazy. I must be schizophrenic or something. I am crazy, okay? And I don't stay crazy. It's just when I'm heavy drinking, the real me comes on and I get real goofy, you know. But this is my one arch enemy because they just about put me out of business. So I hate the IRS. If I had my druthers, I'd ban the IRS entirely and I'd put everything off on sales tax. Yeah, okay, so a banana that used to cost a nickel now costs $5. I don't care what it takes to make those SOBs happy at the government. They're going to get their cut one way or another. But at least with sales tax, I know what I'm paying with taxes. And so if I'm not happy with the grocery store prices, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out and grow my own damn garden, you know, get my own plow, get my own mule, get back to basics. That's the way it ought to be anyway, self-sustaining, right? And when it comes to drinking, that'll really run you. Why do you need to drink? Why do you need to drink? Because people are not stupid. They don't want to have a moonshine and have the revenuers come and they want their cut. This is a book about moonshine, and I know the woman that wrote it, one of my best friends. But my biggest friend of all, and he doesn't even know it yet, is this man right here. You can order his book free on Amazon. It's absolutely free. Oh, by the way, if they charge you at Amazon, don't buy it through Amazon. Go to Google and Google this guy. He's got a book that will help you and me and anybody that reads it cover to cover more than anything I can tell you. His name is Charles Payne. You see him on television all the time. He's a financial advisor. And he has some deep-seated theoretical paradigms that I truly am in tune with. That's kind of the way I think, the way he expresses himself. I love this guy. Charles Payne, Unstoppable Wealth. And there are just as many good books out there, from Tony Robinson to, if you want to get into Plato and the old philosophers, there's stuff. I love reading, okay? But that's the good one. And the granddaddy of all is this guy. And I do have a fresh copy here, but I've also got one in my car that I carry with me. And the reason I do it is not because I'm a fanatic or a Christian. It's because the stuff in this book is a lot of wisdom. Especially if you want to know the future, just go to the back of the book. You go to Revelations. It tells you what's going to happen in the future. Now, what does the Bible say about the future? It says the same thing damn Horus said back to 10,000 years ago. Horus was there at the Egyptian takeoff on Jesus. Okay, that's the closest thing I could say. He was like a Jesus back in their day. He had 12 disciples. He was considered to be a god, by the way. Horus. Google it. He had 12 disciples. He could walk on water. He raised from the dead. He was born of a virgin. He died and was resurrected on the third day. And yes, they did crucify him. You know why they crucified him? Because he was a troublemaker. Same way Jesus was a troublemaker. He challenged the authority of the Roman Empire. And what do? Same thing they do today. If you challenge, if you are a threat to the government, I don't care if you're GOP, liberal Dem, whatever you happen to be, they don't care. They don't want to be challenged. The trouble with people today is they think they're going to come in and change the world. It does not happen that way. We are nothing more than a bunch of rats on top of a mountain. And once we get so many rats up there fighting amongst themselves, some big sugar daddy or something blimp or something is going to come by and say, okay, they're contaminating my mountain. I'm going to get rid of them. They get scared and they all run together in mass and run off the cliff. Rats. That's all we are, is rats. Compared to the higher intelligent beings that are actually out there right now watching us, we're nothing more than a test tube. Is this planet really a real planet? I don't know. You know, some people say it's a matrix. If that's the case, then God is AI. Think about it. Maybe there's a super wizard programming and a real high level programming coding like Rust. You know, that's primarily controlled by transvestites out of Silicon Valley. I tell you one thing America will not change though, no matter what they do to us. We're the cradle of all creativity. Because anything that you can think of and put down on paper is what I call creative genius. That's where you really learn a lot about yourself. You read, but then you meditate. Meditate for at least 15 minutes a day. And I'm not going to say that you levitate or go into Paranjanti or any of this crazy stuff the Hindus do, but look, you search for your own soul, you're going to find him eventually. And when Socrates said, know thyself, he was absolutely correct. If you know yourself inside out, it will help you understand why you should not judge others. Because all along, you thought you were so damn self-righteous because you went to church. That's not what counts. What counts is helping somebody that is downtrodden. I go out and I sing to the old folks at home. I go in with a guitar, I sit on a stool, I play folk music. Most of it's Bob Dylan, but they love it. Only thing they'll sing along with those hymns and stuff they've heard in church. I love old people and I love old-fashioned ways of doing things. And there's one thing that's old-fashioned. Never in a million years would an old man like me not be attracted to a young thing like that. I think she's 18 years old in this picture. I'm marrying young. She's much younger than I am. She's real pretty. And I'm real old and nasty looking. Probably need a knitted haircut, but being retirement, I don't care as much as I used to. Neighbors don't like me very much when I crank my hog. Got a hog with straight pipes. It's loud. When I crank it, the windows in my neighborhood vibrate. It is loud. Why? Because I want the cars to know that I'm in the area. Stay out of my way. I drive a Kamikaze Nagasaki. It's specially designed on a Vulcan frame, and it's all Japanese parts. So yeah, I hang out with the hog men. I used to be one myself. I had a couple of hogs. A Fat Boy was the last one I owned, and before that it was a lowered, customized 1200 Sportster. But it had supercharged engine. It was probably the fastest bike I've ever owned. Even though it was a little bit smaller engine, it was fast. It was lightweight. It was fast. It was a Harley Davidson. By the way, I named my son Harley. My wife changed it. They moved that to the middle name, but I wanted him to be Harley so he could be my son. I'm David. Hey, Harley Davidson. She decided, no, it's better. Let's move that name to the middle and put an H in its place. So it's Michael Harley Tidwell, richest man in Atlanta. And he's begging me not to go out and run my mouth, because if I do, then he's got the same problem these other rich SOBs have. They all come after him. They want a piece of Michael. And, he's tries to live a normal life, but the last time he got up and spoke in front of a group that I can remember, it was at Georgia State University. They ran out the whole gymnasium. I think up to 5,000 people showed up just to hear him speak about latest technologies, artificial intelligence, robotics, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, all that stuff rolled into one presentation. The boy is gifted, but he did not, and I want to repeat myself, at IQ 88, trust me, he did not get it from me. He got it from his mom. She's the one that's got she's the brains behind Paul. I'm Paul, she's Maul. What else can I say other than turn myself inside out? I don't care. If you don't like me, I tell you what I'll do. I'll leave you with a dessert. Food for thought. You ready for this? Well, whether you're ready or not, here it comes. I'll be there in just a second. I'm tuning up I'm gonna tune up the keyboard probably in just a little bitty ditty before I turn you off, okay? Hang on. Give me a second, I'm putting batteries in this thing. It's battery operated. I'm the one that tinkered with us to make this happen, so bear with me. Hang on, don't give up on me. Hold on. I'll be back by the time this alarm goes off. I've got 2 minutes. All right. So what I did was I loaded this thing on. It's a program, an app that I created, and what you do is let me just show you. It won't work without a keyboard. You have to have a keyboard. I don't know if you can hear this or not. This is a synthesizer. I've got it turned on, so it's automatic. It's going to make this sound regardless of what my fingers do. But see, this is for the kids, you know. And you put it. It's a little slide, and you put your slide in the side, and then you get the kid to come on, play me a song, Johnny. And then Johnny gets out his little toy, this toy. See, I'm not even touching it. It's going automatically. All right, it goes in the slide right here. All right, you get the idea? Creativity. This is nothing more than a piece of plastic. You can lay it over your smartphone if you want to. It makes like the kids go crazy. I'll tell you another toy that I like. I've just seen that. I didn't invent this one, but this is something that really tweaked my trigger with kids. And by the way, I do have a game company I just started up. It's a Tidwell 21 Enterprises LLC. You see this? This is what I call the anti-gravitational ball. Now we know enough about gravitation. And just as a primitive society, we know there's something to these objects that go zip faster than the speed of, well, not quite the speed of the light, but much faster than the speed of sound, faster than any of the most modern jets that I think the fastest known object that man has created was the rocket ship, and Russia is supposed to have one. Chinese have duplicated it, that will go 17,000 miles an hour, like 2 feet off the ground or something, you know, real low, where by the time you pick it up on radar, you're being hit. You can't stop something that fast. And they're going to use it against our ships at sea if we ever go to war. So yeah, they'll be sinking our battleships left and right. The only thing that will survive will be the submarines. They're not as easily detected. This ball, once it's activated, will spin. And you can go to YouTube and you can see the boomerang ball. You can buy it in these stores. You can go to Walmart. I think it's like $5 or something, $4.90. It's cheap, not much at all. You hover it. When you open your hand like that, it hovers. It has a light that glows on. It's anti-gravitational, but it's got gyroscope that goes this way, and some kind of lead ball inside that bobbles up and down. I don't know how it works, but I know that you can put it on a table and it will lift up and maintain. But then if you put your hand over it, you'll be able to move it because the energy in your hand, I don't know. You can move it like that. Then you can throw it out, and you put your hand in, it comes right back, and you catch it. It's magic. Kids love it. You can give this kid to Christmas present. It's not expensive. It's cheap. This will be the one toy that they'll pick over any other toy, including balls or baby toys. And once they're big enough to understand how to use it, they'll love it. And it gets their imagination going. It's really a good toy. So what do I want to do with the last few remaining years of my life? Let's assume I've only got 60 months left, and that could be because I am in my mid to late 70s, and you know, when you start looking at that big 80, you're thinking, well, by the time I hit that, and I'll for sure start to lose my sharpness. I won't be the same guy. I might end up in a wheelchair in an old folks home. And that concludes my time for today. And with all these conglomerated and mixed up thoughts, I'll say it like Paul Harvey used to say. And this is David Tidwell. A good day.